How are you guys doing? Can you guys hear the frogs? You can kind of hear the crickets off in the distance a bit, but the frogs kind of drowned them out. Proverbs 10:21. Mishle. The lips of the righteous sustain many, but fools die for a lack of sense. Do you guys know what this is referring to? I'm not sure if this is the original source for what the sages say about Torah studies sustaining the world, but I know it's definitely one of the sources. Because to properly study or learn and fulfill the mitzvah of Torah learning, a person has to speak it. It has to be a complete effort of thoughts, words, and action. That's why a lot of people, when they study Torah or they give shurim, give lectures, they'll like kind of move back and forth to bring their body into, to make it a complete thing, to bring the action with the thoughts and the words. There's other reasons I've heard for why some people, or why the practice of kind of like moving back and forth came into being, but that's one of them anyway. The world exists on the merit of the righteous that study the Torah day and night. And the fools that die for lack of sense are those that don't learn Torah. Mishle 10:22 is also, I mean, they're all really good, but it's something. These two are really, I think, important. It is the blessing of the Lord that enriches, and no toil can increase it. A person's parnasah, their income or their sustenance, whatever livelihood that sustains them, is it's decided on Rosh Hashanah and sealed on Yom Kippur with their fate. You know, whether they'll live or die that year, or if they'll be sick or healthy. And all the suffering that they're slated to get. There is a way to change it. I'll mention it back, like around that time, somewhere around. I think it was after Yom Kippur, but if a person doesn't do teshuvah before Yom Kippur, if they miss Elul, and their judgment is sealed for, not for the good, for the year, a person can still change it by changing themselves, because in a very real sense they become a different person. So the judgment that was upon them no longer applies, because they're, if a person does teshuvah, they're no longer the person that had that judgment on them. But there's all kinds of others. I'm not sure exactly what I'm trying to say. One thing about the suffering that a person gets is, unless they are constantly, well, it doesn't matter, when a person does teshuvah and elevates their level and atones for their sins, they always put themselves in a better position. And only God knows exactly what the balance of suffering that a person's going to get, before or after they do teshuvah. But generally, when a person does teshuvah, usually they get some kind of suffering. If they don't, it's not a good sign. Because when you do teshuvah, you want the suffering as a sign that God accepted your teshuvah. Because you get suffering in this world as a replacement for suffering in the world to come. For it's like time served in Gehinnom. There's all kinds of warning signs. Most people fail to see, mostly from being a fool, from lack of knowledge. Most people know just enough to be dangerous, both for themselves and others. I mean, I'm definitely one of those people. I'm just not quite as not quite as bad as I used to be as far as being so dangerous. At least for myself, I guess. And in many respects, for a lot less dangerous for other people. Only in some respects, though. But I see certain things that people say or do, and it just makes me sad. But it also motivates me. It gives me a sense of urgency to do. I don't like using certain words and phrases like doing my best, doing everything that I can, because I don't know if that'll ever happen. But to definitely do more and more and more, to try to give people a fighting chance, to save them from themselves. There's so much in the Torah. And most people don't know anything other than these little bits and pieces that they hear people either like take out of context, or they take out of context themselves, and they read some isolated some isolated verse or isolated statement by the sages. Both Jews and Goyim. Everyone hears what they want to hear. Mostly whatever makes their life easier, or whatever validates their own actions and their own desires. one of the most damaging statements that, not in itself, but because of, because people are lazy, and because they're corrupt, and because they like to sin, is all of Israel have a share in the world to come. I think it's from the Mishnah in I'm not sure what they are, if they're chapters or whatever. Mishnah 10. And the Rambam also goes over a similar thing in his Mishnah Torah in Hilkot Teshuvah 3, I guess 3:6 to 8. But if a person reads, more than just one sentence, or half of whatever the portions in the Mishnah are called, half a verse or whatever. If they read more than that, they see it's not every Jew. I mean, technically every person, every soul, both Jews and Goyim, do have a share. But the word, I can't remember what the Hebrew word is, but it's a word for like a plot of land. And the Torah and the sages always use very specific words for specific reasons. And the reason why they chose the word, that the Hebrew word for like a plot of land, is because every person has that plot. But in order for it to produce anything, the land has to be worked. Otherwise, it lies fallow, and otherwise it sustains no one. It goes to waste. So everyone has a portion that they can claim, but if they don't put in the work here in this world, at the very least, it's going to be a sad portion. Like Rabbi Yaron Rubin said, you're going to have a homeless Olam Haba. At the worst, because the transgressions a person makes can be so severe without them knowing what they're doing. Like in completely lose their portion and face total oblivion and Gehenna. At least, as far as what makes up a person's being, their soul. Like a lot of the heretics nowadays say that you can't really destroy all that stuff because it's a part of God. Not that anyone really knows what that means. I'm sure you can't. The material or spark that God gives to the soul, it can't be destroyed. But it can be returned to what it was before it was made into a soul. So there's nothing left. Some of the people that have no share of the world to come are, for one, the obvious, anyone that doesn't believe in the one and only true living God of Israel. That's like a very bottom of the entry level. Can't even get close to consideration without that. And that's one, not two, not three, not an uncle or a son or a nephew or some guy that died and came back to life. The living God. Others that don't have a share in the world to come are those that say that resurrection of the dead is not to be found in the Torah. And the heretics that don't believe in divine providence or that the Torah is divine, from heaven, and that don't respect the sages or the Torah. I forget which sage it is. I think it was Rabbi Akiva said also that people that say like incantations over the sick or over a wound, also don't have a share of the world to come because they deny that God is the only healer. There's a very specific set of uh, of like attributes for what is called an epicurus, a heretic, what that is, or a mean, like min. One of them is thinking that God has a body or a form. Some say that the Kabbalists apply or qualify under that. For my limited understanding, most of the words that they use are just words that people can understand. Ways to describe aspects of God's presence that a person can experience, depending on what level a person's at. That's above my pay grade, though. People use really like cherry picked statements or verses from the Torah as a way to justify not following it, which is just the most like horrific, sad, disgusting thing. If anyone really learned very much or read very much of the Torah and paid attention like it was from from God. They would know that the lies that they hold in their heart and the nonchalant, lackadaisical attitude that they hold definitely doesn't match up with pretty much anything else in the Torah. How are you doing, Joshua Taft? I'm doing well. Amazingly well. Hope you're doing well also. I hope you're having success with with your teshuva. That was one thing I wanted to try to hammer home. Is as if whatever it is that a person wants, if you set your heart to it and ask for the help, you'll get it. No matter how impossible or hard it seems. You got to try. You have to put forth an effort. I was I'm going over the lectures that I watch for the last couple months. Like I'll watch them, and then usually I'll record portions on the phone, and then save the videos, and then like repost clips or like rewatch them later. And in Rabbi Earl Rubin's latest live event, where it's titled the 50th, I think it's the 50th Gate of Impurity before Mashiach. Or no, 50th Gate of Tumah, Tumah. It's from right around the end of April, beginning of May, somewhere around there, like April 30th or 31st or May 1st, somewhere around there. He would, in the questions and answers portion of the lecture, he talks about well, how the phenomenon of people using Mashiach as like a crutch or like a spiritual lottery ticket that everyone has, that they can just put off doing everything that they're supposed to be doing, and then other than maybe pray for him to come. And just hoping that everything's going to work out, that he will solve all their problems. He said, it's there's really nothing like that in the Torah. It's only in like the last really 20 or 30 years that anything remotely close to that kind of attitude in among the Jews that that observe the Torah, and it's really a pretty new phenomenon. He said, more and more they're becoming more like, a lot of Jews are becoming more like the Christians. which is disgusting and sad. Well, he said, people you don't have to people don't have to wait for Mashiach or Gog and Magog to understand or feel the implications of their own their own day of judgment. Because people die all the time. Like 60 million people every year die, and they get their own personal judgment day. I mean, there's only been like a small handful of people that managed to escape death, so to say, and escape their judgment day. Well, that's only like a couple people. They still left the world. They just managed to do it in a way that was so beyond nature, because they had the amazing merit, because they basically sacrificed everything and refined themselves to the 50th level, the opposite of the 50th level of Tumah. But then he went on to say that, all these examples of tragedies in the world, they're all for Am Yisrael, to the people of Israel, so that they do teshuvah. Like any time that there's a massive war or a famine or a plague, like a virus, no matter how bad or how piddly it looks, every time there's a financial crisis or a natural disaster where hundreds of thousands of people die, it's all supposed to be a wake-up call for Am Yisrael to do teshuvah. And he said, Rav Ovadia, I believe it's Rav Ovadia Yosef, said in his book that there's a secret to who Am Yisrael is, because there's no extra words. Or no, it's not Am, it's Kol Israel. All Israel have a share in the world to come. The Rav Ovadia says that Kol Israel is not just the righteous Jews, but it's also the righteous Goyim, because in the section of the Mishnah where it states, who has a share of the world to come, it lists, it specifically names, I think, like 7 or 8 or so people from the Tanakh that don't have a share of the world to come, and I know at least one or two of them are goyim. So if it was just talking about his nation, the nation of Israel, just talking about the Jews, then it would make sense to mention, I think it's Bilam. I think Doeg the Edomite is also mentioned. I'm not sure. I mean, he sounds like a goy, but there would be no reason to mention wicked goys that didn't have a share in the world to come if the righteous goyim didn't have a share in the world to come and weren't part of Am Yisrael, of Kol Israel, of all the nation of Israel in that specific circumstance. It still doesn't change everything else. Like there's, you still have to have a separation. You still, goyim can't observe the holidays and Shabbat. It doesn't change anything else other than the fact that there's really only one people once the redemption happens, and from that point on, there's always going to be different levels. And in Shemayim, the reward that a Jew gets for observing the whole of the Torah is going to be nothing compared to, be far, far greater than what a goy gets for keeping whatever minimal stuff that we're obligated to keep, even though it's definitely more than 7 laws. I've been trying to find a fully enumerated list of all the laws, but so far I don't trust any of the sources that I've found. Hopefully with some help I can eventually get something solid that's trustworthy and the truth, without having to transgress the laws of learning, digging through stuff I'm not supposed to pick it all out. But I think it was the next day after I finished watching that lecture. I think it took me like 24 hours or something to find, to get through all of it, or maybe a little more because it was like a 4-hour lecture. I had to go somewhere yesterday, so when I was out driving to pick up something to eat, I was thinking about that exact thing, about about how the things a person sees both in the world and in their own life are messages for them to do teshuva. And the thing that he specifically said that I need to mention is that not only is it a warning sign, like a wake-up call for people to get their act together, is quite literally that was supposed to be you. Like all the people that died of corona, it was supposed to be you. All the people that got, murdered in home invasions or had their heads smashed in by insane anarchist rioters, or all the people that died in an earthquake, or your neighbor who, their house burnt down, or the person that got their car smashed, sideswiped right in front of you. All that was supposed to be you. You just happen to have the merit to get one more chance. And so when I was driving, I was thinking about that exact thing. Driving on the freeway, when I see the traffic kind of start to slow down, I see this puff of black smoke. And it's kind of like just a small little wisp. The traffic slows down more, and the puff of black smoke gets a little thicker. And then traffic slows down a little more, and then there's a big plume of black smoke. As traffic slows down more, keep getting closer and closer to the source of the smoke, and then traffic's down to like a crawl, and the black smoke is like going through these stages of like thick billowing tufts that just rise up off the horizon, and then these little stuttering wispy thin, like not stops, but like little portions where it kind of thins out and it's not as thick. And then just slowly, after like a minute or two, the traffic finally gets up close to where the smoke is. As all the traffic was all just to slow down and look at this car that was on fire on the other side of the freeway. Thankfully for the two guys that were in the car, they got out before it got too serious. They were standing on the side of the road staring at the car. But that was supposed to be me with a burning car on the side of the road. I hope I can I hope I can keep increasing my teshuva. Lately, I felt like I haven't learned quite as much as I did. At least it hasn't been like it's quite as intense and dedicated as I had worked up to, but I definitely haven't stopped learning. It's not quite as focused as it was, but while it's important to learn, it's also just as important to help other people, if not more important. It's said that if one if a person doesn't apply what they learn to their own life, it's better off if they didn't learn at all. And if they don't share what they learn with other people, it's like they're stealing. For someone who just starts learning, it's a really treacherous thing to try to do, because generally a person, you know, when they get serious about doing teshuva and learning, they the motivation and desire to try to help other people do what you're doing kind of outpaces what the knowledge that you have to share with anyone. And there's certain kind of basic things, you know, like Musar, like don't be an angry, jealous, ungrateful monster. Don't swear, and don't be immodest. Stop wasting seed, and various other things like that. But there's a lot of things that are complicated. That's just one more of the infinite ways that God is so merciful. He gave us the internet with all its traps of the Satan. But there's pretty much not all, but there's a there's there's never been more Torah learning available to any one person at any point in time in this world than there is right now. And it's never been easier to share it with pretty much anyone else with an internet connection. And the really amazing thing is a person can know absolutely nothing, or at least very little, and still be able to share with just a click, posting a link. But just like things can get tricky with as they get more complex. A person has to know what Torah to share. The person definitely wants to share Torah that's from Shemayim and not from a place of evil waters. If a person uses the sages and their commentary on by the sages throughout history as a guide, they can always find what the right path is, to know if what they're hearing or reading from any one person or place is from Shemayim. If it's from heaven. Yeah, people are most definitely not the source of anything, especially knowledge. it all, everything good can all be traced back to emulating God's traits, but in a way that is in line with the Torah, not in a way that's in line with what a person thinks is with their own reasoning. A lot of people try to be more, or think that they're, unwittingly think that they're more merciful than God is. But people are mostly blind. And we definitely can't see anywhere near the whole picture. We see this tiny little sliver. So it's pretty foolish to have any kind of concept of judgment or think we know what's going on, let alone have the arrogance and audacity to think that we would be able to run things better. That is definitely the wrong way to think. Person wants to run from that as far and as fast as they can. Person can get all the help that they want if they just humble themselves and ask for it. But if a person really wants to get the most help possible, and to see true blessings in their life, they will make his will their will, and then he will ask for the help to fulfill it. While constantly being scared to death and ever mindful and vigilant of thinking there's something that they're not. Of deviating from anything that they've learned of the truth in the Torah. And they constantly repeat the the words of Musar that they learn. I hope I can. I hope I can keep it up. With a great deal, of his help, I will. A very, very high level of Yirat Shamayim for myself. People need so much help. The really odd thing is that all the help people need is just waiting for them, waiting for us. All we have to do is put forth a small effort and to ask. Just do the things that the Torah says. No one's perfect. Least of all myself. However that phrase goes. But he knows that. He doesn't expect us to be perfect. He just expects us to do something, do more. If we don't push ourselves as this world goes on, we will be pushed. We can either refine ourselves voluntarily, or we can be forged in the fire. Until all the impurities are drawn out or beaten flat. Gotta do more, guys. People. I wish I had a more private setting sometimes so I could raise my voice a little bit. Just imagine I'm screaming at you. People need to see. I was thinking about wasting food earlier. It's definitely no coincidence because they don't exist. But I found Mishle 10:22. It is the blessing of the Lord that enriches, and no toil can increase it. Most people have so much physical abundance. They don't know what to do with it. But most people also have no blessing. No blessing in their parnasah, in their sustenance, in their money or whatever that they look sustains them in this world. I mean, in a lot of ways, it's good for a person to have food stores. To put forth their effort. So they can feed their family and anyone else that might need it. But at the same time, it doesn't make any sense to just constantly buy things that are just going to end up in the garbage or rot. I definitely have my own. my own waste of Parnasaw, the stupid things that I bought. Most of it's not perishable food items. It's like plastic garbage. One good way to look at everything in this world is how can it be used to serve God's will? How can it help people do teshuva? How can it help glorify God's name? Whether it's rotting vegetables or plastic trash or a machine gun. Whether it's food that you grow. A car that you drive. Clothes that you wear. Or the measly talents that God gave you. Hopefully with a great, not hopefully, with a great deal of his help and mercy. Will he guide us all to use everything that we have at hand to fulfill his will, to help people do teshuva, and to glorify his name.